Hey everyone, it's Megan Gilroy from Wanderlust Entrepreneur, and we're doing another Facebook Live today, which I love to be able to connect with everyone and get to talk about retreats, which are just an amazing way to add another stream of income into your business and to be able to travel the world and change lives and make great income doing so. And I know there's a lot of healers and coaches and authors and really anyone who has any kind of business who might want to add retreats into your business model. And we help you do that here at Wanderlust Entrepreneur. So today we are talking about how to create a retreat strategically. And this is hugely important because a lot of people tend to want to put a retreat up, and they get so excited about going to some really cool location and taking their people with them that they don't necessarily think through all the steps and components that are so vital in creating a retreat. So I see Joanna's here. Hey Joanna, thanks for joining us. If you do have questions, you're welcome to write them right below in the comment box, and I'm happy to answer them for you. So we're talking about designing retreats strategically, and the first thing that I'd like to cover is the biggest mistakes retreat facilitators make. So when you're not planning it strategically, what tends to happen. And then I'm going to talk about the 6 components of creating a retreat so that you'll have a better picture of what it is that you would need to put together. So if you haven't already, you do want to make sure you catch our videos because we have a lot more information in those. Those are at wanderlustentrepreneur.com/video-easy. And let's get going. So let's see, the biggest mistakes that retreat facilitators tend to make. Now, I was talking to a client the other day, hey Steph, and she was like almost in tears because she had spent months and months planning her retreat. She was a yoga teacher and planning a retreat down in Costa Rica, and it wasn't filling, and she was so disappointed because she had not only invested some time and money into making the retreat go, but she knew she had a lot to offer and share, and she just didn't know what it was that she was doing wrong. And so let's see if, as I go over these different points that you want to make sure that you are not making these mistakes. Let's see, I'll tell you the one that she made. So, hey Amory, I see you're on there. Okay, so the first one of the biggest mistakes retreat facilitators tend to make is they do incorrect pricing. And when you don't price your retreat correctly, you end up obviously not making money. And this is a definite issue because after putting in so much time and effort and just that heartfelt energy and excitement of creating the retreat, if you're not getting paid for all that time and effort, it can be really frustrating. So you do want to make sure when you're pricing your retreat that not only do you put in every expense, and we are doing webinars tomorrow and next week, and we do list every single expense that you're going to want to make sure you cover, but you also want to make sure that you add in net profit. And so that means when you're pricing your trip, you have a list of all your expenses, and then you also have a line item where you're adding in money that's just for you, it's just for your time, and it's the money that when you're all said and done, you've paid all your bills, that you're putting that money in your pocket and you're walking away with that money. And when you think about not just the time that it's going to take for you to show up on your retreat, but also all the planning time, you really want to make sure that you've added in enough net profit. So that is the first biggest mistake, incorrect pricing. That really wasn't the client's issue that I'm talking about. The second one is not being able to fill your retreat and then having to cancel it. And this is a big one because a lot of people struggle with getting their retreats to fill. They might have even a decent size list, but if your retreat isn't designed to really solve a problem that your audience is facing, if it's not written in a really romantic, enticing way, if you don't have a really great trip sales page that has all the information people need and really kind of wines you and dines you and seduces you into wanting to go on the trip, and if you haven't really thought out how to lay out your retreat like a retreat so that there's a combination of activities that relate to your teachings and relate to the location where you're at, but also there's time for fun and relaxing, and there's really cool outings, and there's time for group processing and sharing ahas. You really need to have all of those components in a really well-designed retreat to make your trip enticing, and that is the basis. Once you have a well-designed retreat and also a well-designed trip page, then you can start doing marketing, and that will absolutely help you fill your trip. So that was one of the problems that this client was having, is that her trip hadn't been designed in a super enticing and yummy way. And so she thought that her only problem was marketing, but Sherry and I, my business partner here at Wanderlust Entrepreneur, we look at so many pages of people who put their trips up, and they're really just not that seductive. And for someone to want to go on a retreat with you, especially if they're not a person who has met you in person, then you have to do a really good job of having the page be organized, having really good qualifications of why someone will want to come on the trip with you, what the benefits are, and you're doing this to show like you're a competent, organized person. You're not going to take people to flea bag hotels. You want people to get to know your style just in the way you're writing, and to be able to read your bio and get to know more about you. And you really want to develop that tribe and that following who want to go with you on retreats. So the third biggest mistake, number 3, that retreat leaders make is they often don't have a marketing plan. And so days gone by, years ago, you really could take a retreat and throw it up on social media, or even send out an email blast or two and have enough people coming on your retreat. And unfortunately, that's not generally the case these days. You want to do it ongoing and sustained marketing. And on our webinars, which are coming up this week, you can register if you haven't already, wanderlustentrepreneur.com/register. There are at least 20 ways that you can use to fill your retreat, because as we say all over the place, but definitely in our webinars, is that you want to be marketing your business and growing your list and growing your audience, and not just advertising your retreat. And so if you work on growing your list all year long, then you're going to have a following of people who then are excited about going on a retreat. And that was another one of the mistakes that the client I'm mentioning in the story had made, is that she hadn't really been growing her list. And so she just threw out an email saying, kind of join me for 5 nights, 6 days in Costa Rica, and she really didn't get a good response. So in our webinars and also in our Retreat Blueprint program, we do talk a lot about how you do enticing copywriting, how you really identify your audience, and how you identify the problems you can solve and the benefits of coming on your retreat, so that people will understand the value. And there's so many clever ways to send out teaser emails, and even doing things like this, like Facebook Live, where you're helping solve a problem, and throughout the live stream, you're dropping hints about going on a retreat. So if you're just joining us, I see some new people have joined us. I'm Megan Gilroy from Wanderlust Entrepreneur, and we're talking about how to plan a retreat strategically, not just throwing spaghetti on the wall and hoping it sticks. So the fourth biggest mistake that retreat leaders make is that they don't realize that you do need to be legally protected when you go on retreats, and that comprises really of 3 different areas. One, you want to make sure you have the proper liability forms, and these forms really should be designed specifically for travel and reviewed by a lawyer who specializes in travel. We do have these forms within our Retreat Blueprint program. They are incredibly valuable, and they really just make sure that you're covered legally, because there are crazy things that happens on retreats. I know we don't like to think about those things, and of course we hope and pray that that doesn't happen, but just last night on one of our webinars, someone mentioned that on the first day of one of her retreats, someone broke their leg, and you just want to know that you're covered for crazy situations like that. I know one time we went on a retreat, and almost the entire hotel of retreat participants got a tummy bug, and we had to go and get medicine to deal with that. So things like that do happen, and you just want to make sure you're properly protected. The second component of doing that is that you want to make sure you have a cancellation policy in place on your website. And we do have a formula for that within our program, and we also talk about this a little bit on the webinar because there are many different ways, refundable, non-refundable, transferable, that you want to make sure you structure it properly. And then the last one is that you have the proper insurance, because if you're in business, it's always great to have professional liability insurance, which is also called errors and omission insurance, which means if you gave someone advice and they said, well, your advice caused something terrible to happen in my life, you would be protected. But if you're running retreats, you have to have a special retreat insurance on top of that, because obviously some things that happen on retreats aren't the kind of things you would see in an office. So, for example, if someone, got violently ill or they broke their leg, that's probably not going to happen if you just come and sit in my chair in my office, but definitely a possibility on a retreat. And we go over also all the kinds of insurance that you need on our webinars. So those are the 4 biggest mistakes. So I'm just curious, from anyone listening, do you feel like any of those are an issue for you? And if you do, put a comment down in the comment box. Either you've had a retreat or you're worried about not knowing how to price it properly, that you're worried about it not filling or having to cancel it, or that's happened to you, that you're not totally sure about marketing, how you put that in place. And then the last one was that you don't have proper legal forms. So if that's any of those are your concerns, or you've had those things happen and you're brave enough to admit it, you can go ahead and put it below in the chat box. And I see a couple new people coming on. Thank you everyone for joining us. And I'm Megan Gilroy from Wanderlust Entrepreneur, and today is our Facebook live stream of how to create a retreat strategically. So now I do want to give some suggestions on the 6 different components you need to have in place to create your retreat strategically. And if you do have a question you want to ask, feel free to do it below. So the first component of designing your retreat, or of planning a strategic retreat, is to design your retreat. And what you want to do when you're designing a retreat is you're thinking about your promise, what problem you solve for people, your audience. You're really looking for the perfect setting and thinking about the ideal group size and location, and you're aligning your teachings to the location. So that falls in the realm of designing your retreat. Then secondly, you're going to move on into promoting your retreat, and that has to do with creating really great copy on your website, putting up an amazing trip page, but then also using one of the 20 plus ways that we share to market it. And then you're going to move into pricing your retreat, which means that you want to make sure that you're properly estimating all your expenses, you're properly estimating the minimum number of people who are going to go on your retreat, because that does make a big difference in how you price it. And to make money, you want to make sure proper net profit in, which I mentioned a little earlier, and that you have the correct cancellation policy in place. So I see Anne-Marie says, I'm doing a trip to Venice and I have no sign-ups yet in February. Okay, well you do have a little time, Anne-Marie, and what do you feel like out of the mistakes I've been talking about, what do you feel like your biggest mistake is? And I can help you problem solve that a little bit. Okay, so we're going to move on to running your retreat, which has to do with how you show up as a group leader, how you're able to deal when people start having emotional issues and emotional reactions come up, because that does happen on retreats. It's about just being able to coordinate all your clients' travel, making sure they're flying in on time, and logistically everything's set up for transportation and lodging. It's about just really understanding how to do group dynamics and how to create a safe space for a group, how to facilitate conversations and discussions, and just gaining that confidence within yourself that you can handle your group and you can deliver your message and you can structure and lay out your retreat day to day so that you're really taking people through a process and you're helping them overcome their problems and challenges. So I see Emery saying she's getting worried that there's no interest. I had 6 people last year and her biggest concern is list building. Okay, so I think you are definitely onto it. So that is a common problem we see with retreat leaders, is that oftentimes the first time you offer a retreat, you have great interest, but then you start to suffer from what we consider a list burnout, which is when you've kind of burned through your list of people who are interested. And if you're not constantly adding new people onto your list, then oftentimes the second or third time you offer a retreat, you see that there is less interest. And so Anne-Marie's saying she's been throwing spaghetti on the wall, which is kind of funny since you're going to Italy. But list building is crucial, Anne-Marie. So I know you're part of the program. I want you to go back to the promotional practicalities lesson, and we do talk about 20 different ways that you can list build, and you don't have to do all 20, which would be completely overwhelming. You want to be strategic about what 2 or 3 work for you, and at the very bare minimum, getting a freebie up on your website and having a great autoresponder sequence is huge. Making sure you're posting and engaging people on social media and sending out a newsletter that has high content, valuable information. But then you also need to be bringing people onto your list. The first couple of ways I spoke about is really more maintaining your list. You want to be bringing people onto your list, and that means that you're doing something like blogging or podcasting or doing Facebook live streams or Periscope or Blab or doing some webinars or teleclasses. So lots and lots of ways, and you just need to pick 2 or 3. So I would suggest after you go through that lesson to go ahead and post it in the private Facebook group and tell us which ways you're thinking of, and we're happy to give you some comments and suggestions about how it might work for your particular business. All right, so I'm Megan Gilroy with Wanderlust Entrepreneur. I know we have people come in all the time, and we're talking about the most strategic ways that you can get started on planning your retreat. And we've gone through the first 4 components of retreat planning, which is designing your retreat, pricing your retreat, promoting your retreat, and running your retreat. And then you also want to make sure you protect yourself legally, which means you do have those forms in place that I talked about earlier. You have insurance and a cancellation policy. And the last component is to build a retreat-worthy business. And this is definitely something a lot of folks struggle with, is as you're just getting started, or even if you have a business, but to get it to the level of really being able to fill your retreats, you need to make sure that you're doing ongoing sustained marketing, that you are also monetizing your retreats and building an income after that, and that you're just really differentiating yourself and branding yourself in a way that you stand out from the crowd. And so if you can make sure that you have all those 6 components I just mentioned as part of your business, then you're going to really be doing your retreats in a strategic way and not just doing the spaghetti on the wall thing we've been talking about. So Anne-Marie's saying, awesome, thanks. My pleasure. And so I'm curious if anyone else has a question. I'm happy to answer it. As you can see, those 6 components that I just shared with you are linked to those big mistakes that people make when they're running their retreat. So if you really want to be a retreat expert and you want to know more about this system I just explained with the 6 components, we're doing webinars tomorrow and all next week. You can sign up at wanderlustentrepreneur.com/register, and we would love to have you join us. We give amazing chock full content. And for me, what I always come back to, beyond all the kind of more logistical mistakes people make, is just the mistake of like putting your dream of running a retreat on hold, because that means you're not out there serving the people that you're meant to serve. And that's sad, because you are talented people. Whenever I see people come into our group, it's just amazing the skills you have and the places that you've either been or dream of going. And this planet needs more healers and coaches, people who want to help others and support each other in gaining more awareness and improving our businesses and having better relationships and eating healthier and all the good, amazing, wonderful things I see people saying you do in the group. And there's no better way to do that than taking people out of their everyday lives where you get bogged down in, the daily grind and your regular relationships and problems, and being able to go somewhere and get inspired and recharge and rejuvenate and learn something new and really take some tools home that will solve some problems. So if you're feeling overwhelmed or confused or frustrated because you're not quite sure how to put this all together, then the videos I mentioned help. You can find those at wanderlustentrepreneur.com/video-easy. We have some great downloads there too, and of course our webinars have tons of information. So I just want to close by saying this, that we took a survey recently, and 25% of the people we surveyed said they had been thinking and dreaming about running a retreat for over 2 years, and another 25% said they had been thinking about it for over 4 years. So that means really 50% of our folks have been thinking about a retreat for 2 to 4 years, and that's too long, people. Our lives are short, and there's so many people out there we need to serve, and from my point of view, it's almost selfish if we don't educate ourselves as healers and coaches on how to create a really amazing business and how to add retreats to our business so we can make a difference in people's lives and have a great time traveling the world as we do it. So please, please, please come and join us and educate yourself. We do our best to make it very easy, have a systematic way to create a retreat. We have amazing heartfelt community of people who cheer each other on and support each other. And of course, our staff are all retreat experts. I know retreats have totally changed my life. Some of you might have heard my story. I got married on a retreat. I decided to get pregnant on a retreat. I got pregnant on a retreat. I've now taken my kids on retreats, and retreats just light me up because not only do I get to travel and see the world, but I see literally in the faces of my clients the transformation that they make and the ahas and the breakthroughs and the experiences that happen on retreats. I got funny hair going right now. That kind of amazing transformation that's really full body, it's not just intellectual, is something that I find to be very valuable, and I find that my clients then rave about me and my work because they see the difference in their lives, and they're excited to tell people like, hey, I just went to Teotihuacan, Mexico, or Morocco, or wherever I've taken them to. So it's so important to build your business up so you can support having retreats. I see Debbie joined us. Hey, Debbie. And it's also important that you are really feeling soul satisfied, because there's nothing like knowing that you're delivering your purpose, your passion in life, and sharing that with others in a way that's really juicy and amazing. So I want to thank everyone for joining us on Facebook Live. We're going to do a couple more next week. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.